Welcome back to the Atlantic Construction Podcast. Today we're very pleased to have our first official guest tuning in from Newfoundland. We've had many companies here on the show, obviously, that are carrying out business in Newfoundland, but our first official guest tuning in from Newfoundland, so that's very exciting. We have Patrick Lafreniere, Project Director with JCB Construction Canada, tuning in from JCB's office on Water Street in Newfoundland. Thanks for being here, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks for having me, for sure. I appreciate it.
Yes, lots of topics to discuss today with JCB Construction. Perhaps we can just talk a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your journey. We were talking just before we started recording here about you moving from Montreal, I think it was, to Newfoundland in the end of the 90s, and is that right?
Yeah, so my journey, I said, to Newfoundland and in construction started in 1999. I moved from, not Montreal, but close enough. It was Ottawa, and I was in the IT sector, in the computer manufacturing industry, and I was very young. That's my first background is digital electronics, and I worked for a company, and here I am, a young man, 24 years old, and I was reporting to the president of the company, and I said, "Jeez, this can't be it. I got to do this for the next 40 years." Anyways, long story short, I decided to have quite a major lifestyle change, and it's definitely not a midlife crisis at 24, but I moved to Newfoundland. Was there a link? Absolutely, there was a link. There was definitely a foot in the door. So I moved. I moved to Newfoundland, and I was prepared to go to Memorial University, but instead I went to work in the construction industry, in structural steel, not knowing what structural steel was, or a piece of angle iron, or a channel, or what the owner, still today the owner, a wide flange. I don't know what that is. But he taught me everything. He taught me all the shapes and how to do quantity takeoffs, how to draft, for detailing. So to put pieces into the shop for fabrication.
Do you want to mention his name, Patrick, or what company it was?
Absolutely. No, I'm not shy. He's a phenomenal mentor of mine. I'll ever be grateful. Absolutely. So Roy Parsons is his name, and the name of the company is Steel Fab. Still on the go today. As a matter of fact, Steel Fab is just finished a project that I'm currently undertaking here down on Water Street. They did great for me, and they always have. But yeah, Roy definitely took me under his wing, and taught me a lot. And it was a short duration afterwards. I went to Roy and I said, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. But I truly feel that for the interest of your business and your company, and out of respect, that the person sitting in my seat should have an education. And, we talked about it a little bit, and he encouraged me to go to the College of the North Atlantic, which I did. And I did the architectural engineering program.
That's Newfoundland's, I think that's the only trade college in Newfoundland.
It's right? The trade college, yeah. Exactly. And it used to be, I think, that Cabot College, trade college. So today it is the CNA College of the North Atlantic. So it's a 3-year diploma program. I started part-time, continued to work for Roy part-time, and then I thought to myself, this is going to take 20 years to complete. I don't have that kind of time. So I said, listen, I'm going to do this full-time, and I'll see you in a couple of years, right? And which I did. I graduated, and very successfully, and I went back to work for him. So that's how I got into construction, and I haven't looked back. It's been my journey now for over 20 years is construction.
And so at what point, as I see you've got a project management, a PMP from Memorial U, that was from 2015. Was that something you did while you were working at that time, or?
Absolutely. The PMP is the professional project management professional designation. And it's Memorial University operates kind of a sub campus called the Gardner Center, and I did that while working. Although not my first attempt, I did try to self study. You pick up the book and the PIMBOK it's called, and you kind of read a book like you would a novel, but unfortunately, the book doesn't read that way. So I decided to take that course at the Gardner Center, and very good course. Wow, very professional. Um, I can't speak highly enough of it. And before the course was over, well, listen, on day one, the chief of the course, he came to the classroom. I think there was 37 students, and he said, "I encourage you, before the last day of class, to challenge the exam."
The GMAT, right?
It's the PMP exam challenge.
Right.
The GMAT, I believe.
That's an MBA. That's an MBA. Yeah.
I think that's for the MBA.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So I left it at that, and I don't think anyone really said anything after his suggestion on day one. And sure enough, I show up at the last day of the course, and I put up my hand and I said, "I'm now PMP," and I was the only one out of 37. I couldn't believe it.
You challenged it and you passed.
Absolutely, I challenged it. It's a tough exam. It's
yeah.
You're there at a testing center. You got the headphones.
A little cubicle. Yeah.
Oh, it's a little cubicle. It's so quiet. It's deafening.
Yeah. Swear they set it up that way just to make sure that they maximize your psychological mental limits to see what you can.
Well, it was challenged that day. It's a 4-hour exam. It's not easy. All multiple choice, 200 multiple choice questions.
Mm. Since we're on the topic, I wonder, with your position now with JCB, and we'll get more into that as a project director. Can you maybe just for a minute or two just describe, because a lot of people do aspire to have a PMP designation, whether they're working with a large construction firm or many different industries, right? And just to get that intuition with the critical path and how to manage so many complex moving parts. Can you maybe explain how it's benefited you, like some of that knowledge and that from the PMP?
Well, first of all, language begins to change. When prior to doing the PMP, you're probably fighting a lot of fires. Let's face it, it's construction, and things are hectic, and you're trying to manage your day and your project as best as you can. After doing the PMP, language changed, and you get to understand how the link between scope, time, and cost. And you can speak more intelligently about the triangle of project management. And if you change one, so the triangle, meaning that it's an equilateral triangle, right? So all sides are equal of time. A project has a finite end. Projects are supposed to end. They don't go on forever. It's not a production line like Toyota. A project has a start and an end. So time is finite. The cost is finite. You agreed to do this project for this certain cost, right? So that's the other side of the scope. So the scope, you said that I would do this scope for a certain duration for a certain amount of money. So it's an equilateral triangle. Now, we know that in projects and in construction, there's scope change. So now all of a sudden, that line of the triangle maybe got a little bit longer because you added scope. Well, you can only, if you want to continue to have that equilateral triangle, you can only do that by changing time and cost.
Yeah, I can hear some.
If you don't, right? What do you say?
I know I can hear some subcontractors who are listening right now thinking, "Well, we just got approved for a couple $100,000 change order for all this extra work, but they didn't extend our duration or our crew size any." on the other
A
end?
lot, listen, it's the way if you want to maintain the equilateral triangle of the project, fundamentals of project management without compromising quality. Quality is in the center. You must keep it the same. If you don't, then it's a situation where, of course, there might be an agreement to bring in extra crews to accommodate that additional scope. Okay, that might have been part of the cost, right? So now, if you brought in additional forces, well, then you've reduced the time, and therefore you're not affecting right the triangles not so much.
Of course, it affects the management of your critical paths moving faster. You've got more manpower on the site.
Mm-hmm.
There's just to eliminate errors with transition between scopes and organizing that way and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really I think we could talk about this the whole hour or so. It's
So I speak.
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so I speak to a lot of owners about the importance, then, on that note, the importance of putting a lot of effort into your pre-planning. If you put a lot of effort into pre-planning, a lot of effort into your contract documents ahead of time, into the design, you can potentially avoid a lot of that scope change. Now, I know a lot of owners want a quick return on their investment, and so they don't have time they may not consider themselves to allow themselves to have enough time ahead. They want
So
a shovel around, and right.
On that note, in your experience, do you find now when you say an owner, you're talking about a building asset owner? It could be from various different perspectives.
Private or public?
Their knowledge of the construction process is going to, lead them to understand that, more intimately, like the way that you do.
So, as a GC, when an owner allows a GC, and not just JCB, any GC, to open up the door and let the GC mentor the owner.
Yes.
And build that trust, and having early contractor involvement in that pre-planning. I call it the influence curve. There's more of an opportunity to influence while there is no shovel in the ground, and when you haven't purchased anything, then after all these contracts have been awarded, right? The power to influence is over. Then after that, it becomes a change in scope.
And you could almost go as far as saying, right from that orientation point of the project, which is a year or many years before the hole goes in the ground.
Absolutely.
If the mentality of the owner is somewhat a threat because they've had a bad experience with a GC who took advantage or didn't do their due diligence and do what they said they were going to do, everything went bad. Now they have this relationship right from the get-go that isn't yeah.
I agree. It's tough to I forget what the saying is. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Or maybe it's the reverse. I don't remember anymore. But to change that that mentality. If an owner didn't get a good experience the first time around,
it becomes a stereotype where, okay, you're the GC and this is what they do.
It's a stereotype. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah,
I try to change that a lot.
Oh, and I'm sure that most of your repeat clients know that, right? But I guess it takes time to build those relationships, build that trust, and then maybe have some more freedom to do things the way they need to be done, and you're left.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some very, very interesting topic. I think, just from some different perspectives, like a subcontractor who's working with a developer who might have, say, an in-house architecture firm, and they're doing everything preliminary in-house, and you can almost tell when you look through the drawings, how things might go, if how detailed they are, or what kind of time was spent on assemblies. And I know you guys are a big believer in BIM, of course, which most are nowadays. But I think maybe JCB, I may be wrong, but in Montreal was one of the pioneers of acquiring that software and starting to implement it. And of course, that's all about building everything 3D before it ever goes to site, eliminating transition and interference drawings and stuff. But I think it's such a key thing. Like if the pre-construction is done optimally from the point the shovel goes in the ground, like you said, it's almost like everything's going smooth, and the people now that are involved building it almost don't even know who to thank for all the energy put. Well, they know who to thank, but I just mean it goes smooth and probably not to everyone's credit from the whole process before the building process. But when it's not done and all, everything's not happening smoothly, it's pretty easy to understand why.
Sometimes it is. So you've kind of introduced a lot of topics there. You mentioned the quality of documents and sub-trades or whatnot. Even the GC will look at the quality of the drawings and how it was put together. And this is a repeat thing. As a matter of fact, it was only, I think, just today I received a document. So there's a great study from the university, Ryerson University in Toronto. And this was a study done only in 2020. So it's not very old. And it's about the quality of documents and how much should an owner spend. Is there a trend, an upwards trend, that the quality of documents are getting better or worse? It's some very interesting, I'd be happy to share with you if you wish. But the punchline was this, and I even shared it publicly. If you can catch an error in pre-planning, an unexpected error during pre-planning, it might cost an owner $100 to fix. But if that same error is only caught during construction, it could cost $10,000. Now, this is an example. And why does it cost $10,000 during construction? Well, what happened? All of a sudden now, you have to figure out what the error is. And so there's a stop of construction in that particular area, which means you're impacting your schedule. You might have to buy more material or different material that you've already purchased and is on site that is now useless to the owner. So that money is gone. You'll never get it back, but you have to buy more. It creates disruptions for the next trade to come in line. I was expecting you to come here on day X, but now I have to push you out to day Y because if there's rework, I may have to demolish a wall, a ceiling, a floor. And so if you found that error in pre-planning and the quality of drawings, continued to increase, you'll see that the fluidity on the construction site to be that much more elevated. So you introduced BIM. Yes, JCB have been using BIM for several years. We actually have 2 in-house BIM experts, and then one person is actually doing a master's degree in BIM, BIM construction, it's called.
Yeah.
So that's how much we believe in it. The project that I'm just completing here now, on Water Street, we use BIM, and very early on. And I can tell you that there were some of my subtrades that were not in favor. They didn't understand it, perhaps. It was an unknown to them. However, once they became involved and understood the value.
I wish I would have done this 2 or 5 years ago, right?
I wish I would have done this long ago. And they said, this will be my path forward. Mm-hmm. We found lots of clashes, lots of interferences. We moved pipe and ductwork. It was a fantastic tool.
Yeah, and I think there's when it comes to innovation, we live in Atlantic Canada, and sometimes we're not as susceptible to change as other areas, and that it can be just with the size of our communities or whatever the mentality is. But sure. I've seen that too. once they try and they see the value, but you really got to get them to try it. And a lot of times that means going through a phase where people aren't happy with the change until they understand, and then
Yeah.
the values presented.
I listen. My plumber, what a wonderful company to work with, and he was one that said, well, if there's a problem, I'll just fix it on site and all this kind of stuff, right? And I said, but don't you want to know and understand the problems before they occur? Think about that. Before they occur. Mm-hmm. That's the tool that BIM allows you to forecast and go, we actually now have the power to influence and save cost and time and change management later because we solved the problem in pre-planning.
Mm-hmm. And on that same topic, to piggyback, I know of at least one situation here in downtown Halifax where a large developer who is building multiple buildings, obviously won't name any names or anything, but they've hired a BIM professional specifically for that group of projects, just for that reason. To spend whatever that salary is, it's going to save them a lot more tenfold in the long run, tenfold at least. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I think with what you were saying earlier about catching something pre-construction, and it costs $100. Catch something during construction, it costs $10,000. As an analogy, a lot of time, and the triangle you were talking about with PMP and the equilateral triangle, where time, scope, and money are all equal. However, a lot of times they're not in the minds of certain people in the management team, and it's all about time and money. I think you're going to be in construction, you're going to feel that time and money is, sure. But like you said, if scope could be more in line as an equal with those two, then maybe we would see that more, because a lot of times is, well, I want that hole in the ground because my building's going to be open this much sooner and that kind of thing. So, I mean, we could, like you said, we could go around in circles, but it's a very and again, part of our podcast is just have those open, ongoing, fluent conversations with people to see what might transpire and have an ongoing conversation about all these topics is part of, I think, the solution. Just the more people that are involved and passionate and have the knowledge, the more we all talk, the more sure. things change.
Well, listen, and to your viewers, as they're listening to this today, I encourage other GCs or subcontractors, feel free, and owners, right, developers, to reach out and if you want to understand more about that triangle and BIM and stuff like that, my knowledge is there to share, because the way I see it is if we can all share more knowledge, not proprietary information, of course, that makes JCB successful, but to share knowledge and to make the industry just that much better and mentor, then maybe what we spoke about earlier, that stigma, where construction and we're not going down either the right path, and at least frustrations and change orders and stuff like that. Maybe that mantra can start to change very slowly.
I agree. And in the same way, like you said, your subcontractors were so happy after the change with BIM, and they're going to use that going forward. It would be the same with maybe some developers who've had some bad experiences, and once you can show them real time the value, then you're there.
No, I'll be the first to tell very, very openly that when I hear a project is not going well, even one of my competitors, I feel bad, because at the end of the day, it's the end user that's the one that's going to suffer, because they were expecting X, it's not going well, and so in terms of the entire construction industry as a whole, we all want construction projects to succeed. And for everybody, for the owners, the end user, and of course for the general contractors and subcontractors.
I couldn't agree more, Patrick. So let's talk about JCB Construction.
Sure.
Been around, origins in '85, headquarters in Quebec,
Yes.
also an office in Toronto, and they've done some work in Atlantic Canada over the last 5 to 10 years, but opened an office in Newfoundland where you are now currently.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe just a little bit about the why Newfoundland and the growth. I know there's a few projects that I think they did in tandem with a developer, some of the connections with BMO and some of the building there, and so was it?
Absolutely.
What's the story there with how they came to the decision to open an office in Newfoundland?
So, like I said, part of JCB's success for such a duration has been repeat clientele. We've done a lot of Bank of Montreal's over the years, Shoppers Drug Marts, and it's another brand, Pharmaprix in Quebec. Pet Value is a national client that even recently has approached us, and they want to build, I think, 20 new stores in 2022 or something like that, and renovate another 15. I think I don't know exactly, but it's relationships like that, including what got JCB more strategically planted in Newfoundland was a great client of ours called ALRE Properties. ALRE Properties have come to JCB time and time again. They rely on us to develop for them in Montreal and as well as in Atlantic Canada. They took a major landmark, I'll call it, in Newfoundland, was the old ACAN Windows site in Paradise, Newfoundland, demolished it and built like a super center over there.
The plaza, right? Yeah.
There's a gas station, some food stores, a Shoppers, coffee shop, things like that. So it's about 5 or 6 different buildings, and a big, so it was very, very good for the area, for Paradise, and then just now is the completion of a building downtown. It's 3 stories. I'll call it a above ground of commercial, including the Bank of Montreal as a tenant, and with a 1 story below Water Street for parking. Again, for the same developer, and he relies, ALRE relies on JCB to get it done for him.
You're pretty close range to that project too over the last few years from your office there, huh?
Absolutely. It's definitely been nice to look out the window and you see the progression, and I could just pick up the phone and call my superintendent and kind of say, hey, what's going on over here, and why is that not happening over there? It's harder now, of course, that we have a full building envelope. I can't see through walls yet. But downtown has its challenges. You start digging, and the harbor comes in underneath your feet, and so you have to play with the tides. Your learning curve definitely goes up very, very fast.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that project, because I think it started in maybe July of 2019, and you're just about to completion now. Is that right?
Yeah, there was several versions of design through 2019. Trying to see what would work for the area. Obviously, you got to get approvals from the City of St. John's. There's a process to that. Being downtown, there's things like heritage departments who get involved as well. They want a particular look to maintain a certain heritage look.
Who's the architect, Patrick?
The architect is Powers Brown Architect. They have an office in St. John's, one in Toronto, and throughout the U.S. It's a very great firm. I've really enjoyed working with them on this project. Very, very talented people. But in terms of construction, finally, after it was all said and done and permit in hand, was approximately June of 2020. June of 2020 was the first piece of equipment on the site, which was the piles, of course, is the harbor. So if anyone knows the history of the St. John's Harbor, well, Water Street was the edge of the water until you I think continued to fill and fill, and there was definitely ships coming up to Water Street. But now it's all backfilled from years ago, and there was a great fire in 18 something, of course, and there's lots of history. And so we had to drive piles into the ground to hit bedrock, to support the building, right? Yeah, that was June of 2020.
Yeah, time flies.
Time flies.
And you mentioned you made the transition with JCB around the start of the pandemic. So
I did.
that's your
I did. So very very successful time with them so far. It's been just slightly over 2 years, and it's been challenging. Construction in itself, I guess, is challenging, but nice young company. When I say young, I mean the owners, the partners. Young people, and really ready to take JCB to the next level, and they've successfully started to. Even with the implementation of BIM, they value it, they believe in it. All major projects utilize it. We are paperless. All of the superintendents have iPads, and they're fully connected using Autodesk Build, and we're fully paperless.
Yeah, because I think if I read correctly, I think the Toronto office opened in recent years too, right? So there's been a lot of growth to try and reach their way toward the national brand that they're to achieve.
You got to control growth, of course. If you go too fast, you're not going to. It's hard to please then your key repeat clients, and you definitely have to manage growth. Just because an opportunity presents itself doesn't mean you always have to say yes. And sometimes it's okay to say no. I'm just not ready yet, or I'm not there yet, but I will be.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of the most important things if you're in business. Your ability to say no might get you further than anything else. It's hard to say no to opportunities and big opportunities, and it's exciting and it just does so many things. But to be able to say no when you should sounds simple, but of course it's important.
It's hard, but it takes practice. I'm involved in some boards and conferences many a times, and I keep saying a 5-year-old at the playground has no problems, saying hello, will you be my friend, but as adults, somewhere along our lives that half disappears, and so, but it takes practice. Everyone's just as shy as the next person, and you say hello.
Yeah.
What are you guys talking about? It takes practice. It takes practice to say no, but it's okay.
That's great advice. Tell me a little bit about, am I right in saying that JCB does a lot of private work, but is there also some public tenders that you get involved with? You mentioned before we started recording our episode here about some stuff coming up at Memorial University, and things are a bit slow right now in Newfoundland overall. And maybe I'm wrong to say that. I'll let you speak on the market there. But is JCB pricing a lot of public work in Atlantic Canada as well?
No. So JCB, our livelihood, our bread and butter, has been, I would say, more than 95% private.
Yes. Yeah.
Private work, private owners, private developers, and mostly in the construction management world. When I talk to a potential client, I like to say that we're just a very humble company. And in the construction management world, it's open book, right? What we see, they see. There's no hidden secrets, and we work together as a team along with the architect and evaluate the scopes and contracts and the tendering process. But everyone's involved. Which is very important to us, so that the client, we put the client, at the forefront. In terms of public procurement in Newfoundland, It goes in waves. I guess, with the pandemic, with the, Newfoundland is, we have royalties from oil. And as we know, the oil sector, a few years ago went down to 30 odd dollars a barrel. Well, it's hard to, I guess, for that sector to continue pumping oil out of the shores of Newfoundland, and I'm not in that industry. I don't know the ins and outs. I can't overly speak intelligently, but I think some offshore platforms may have stopped during the pandemic because of the price of oil. It wasn't, I'm thinking, not profitable. And so as a direct result, public procurement slows down a lot. Are there very large capital projects on the go today? Absolutely, there are. There's a big infrastructure project on the other side of the island, in Cornerbrook, as well as there's in St. John's a replacement of a mental health, and there's talks of more. We have a very aging infrastructure, and some schools may need to be replaced in the future. Penitentiary, perhaps, is a talk recently for over the past year or two, and maybe our courts, like our Supreme Courts, they are aging. Everything's aging, So it's time to build on more infrastructure, and something to consider is some new language I've learned recently is shovel-worthy projects. Shovel-worthy projects to understand the flow of goods. In Newfoundland, we have several ports. We have a port here downtown St. John's where container ships come. There's one I think in Argentia. I think there's one in Cornerbrook to be, looking to perhaps be revitalized. And then outside of that, all of the goods to Newfoundland, we are an island. They come via transport truck from the ferry system. So even having a growth there to have maybe a dedicated ferry just for transport might be a great idea to get more goods in and out of Newfoundland, and that helps procurement. By the way, if the ferry system has a choice in North Sydney, they say I can take one truck. Is it going to be the truck full of bananas and apples, or is it going to be the truck that's full of plywood? Well, the bananas will win because food, for people of the island is always going to trump
materials and products.
Yeah. Right? So shovel-worthy projects, I think a keen eye on that will be important to look to into the future, into 2022, 23, 24, that in terms of infrastructure projects, I think that'll be that's the sector that will start to strive a little bit more.
Talk a little bit about your team with JCB in Newfoundland as project director, and you mentioned 95% private, and as a CM, you have supers on site. What about labor shortage? Material cost increase. Just talk a little bit about your team and the current state of a couple of your projects and those things that are kind of forefront of everyone's mind.
So even before this podcast, we talked about where the pandemic may have hindered some industries, but it also opened up other industries. Well, one thing that it opened up for JCB is that the virtual work world is alive and well, and with that, that leads into my team. So I have a great team, and I have a big team. I have a team of the accounting department that helps me with the billing and receivables for everything that I undertake here in Newfoundland and in Atlantic Canada. I have another team that's assistants. They help me, with job coordination, with issuance of POs or contracts and recalling them of the paperwork world. And then locally, yes, absolutely. Every project with a superintendent, boots on the ground, a laborer. We had a wonderful fellow here for the longest time. The project is dwindling down now, so there's not much of a need for that. But we had a laborer here for a year and a half almost. So there's a big team, and the virtual world definitely opened up those channels.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely changing things, and like you said, and like we talked about previously, it's there's lots of positives that have come out of our situation over the last couple of years.
Yes.
I know that this is an Atlantic, Canada based, and I'm not sure how much about some of the projects that are happening in other places that you are with JCB, but maybe to give our listeners some context. And I was looking through some of the interesting projects that Rosanna sent over our way.
Sure.
And St. Anne's College is a lot of neat stuff going on for those. Is it two high schools, or was it one high school and then a building had caught fire during construction phase? So you're now building two structures.
That's correct.
And where's that? Is that in?
It's in Quebec. It's just maybe half an hour away from our head office in Brossard. Rosanna is our marketing guru in Brossard, by the way. So. JCB, we were successful in receiving a contract, CM, yes, construction management, for our college. It's like a private college, so there are many. I think every province probably has a private college, but it's like a high school, and to build a new pavilion for them. Okay. When we were about to begin, they had an unfortunate incident that, yes, another pavilion completely burned to the ground, completely not salvageable. And, they came to JCB for help, and we were there for them, because I spoke earlier about the establishment of relationships and trust, and it takes a little while to curate that relationship. And there was no hesitation in the minds of the college that, first of all, they had the right team in place. And we went right away, first of all, with the demolition of this unfortunate incident of the fire.
I seen the video of the fire on your YouTube channel. And it was a very old structure with asbestos and things like that as well.
Yes. We speaking of that, so it was a complete perimeter wall for containment, very quickly executed. A big team, and then construction has started ever since. There's some neat things to that college. Well, first of all, we use BIM. That's 100% for sure. BIM is very alive and very well used. It enables some pre-construction, you see. It enables people like the sprinkler contractor, the ductwork contractor, to pre-manufacture set lengths of pipe or duct and bring it all to site.
Right.
And now the tradespeople, all they got to do is put it up and it fits. It's a Lego. It's a one big Lego.
Helps schedule.
One of the unique, it helps the schedule. Absolutely, it does. No one has to go now and say, okay, what's the measurement? Okay, send that back to the shop. Wait for the piece to come. Right.
And labor cost, Two
absolutely.
sides of a triangle.
But one of the unique things that's this is really a highlight, and you may have seen the video on this, and I encourage everyone to check it out. But it's I believe one of the first installations for sure in Quebec, maybe Eastern Canada. But it's a solar panel that looks like a flower.
Smart flower, right?
A smart flower. It looks like a flower, and essentially, why is it a smart flower? Because just like a flower, when the sun is out, the flower blooms. And so all of the petals start to, like a fan, open up in a 360 degree and position itself and continue to rotate and follow the sun. And at night, it goes to sleep and it folds up and tucks away.
And it kind of follows the trajectory of the sun throughout the day. Is that right?
Throughout the day, absolutely. It's that kind of innovation and the ability to implement it on a project that helps JCB, always push the envelope forward.
Yeah, this week, knowing that we were going to be chatting, I was looking through some of the St. Anne's College, just some of the interesting things about it. When I seen that, I had been talking last week with a gentleman who's a sales rep agency for sustainable building products, and he had some of the pendant lighting with just your basic solar panel on street lights in a park or by a tennis court. So they're solar panels, and that's how the park is lit. But then when I seen the smart flower on the campus there, I thought, wow, that's above and beyond. I think it says 40% more
efficient.
Yes, than your typical solar panel, and
it is.
That is such a cool, and it's like 5 meters high, just for context and how big that is, right?
It's large, yeah. It's large. It's neat.
Yeah. What about there was mention of radiant floors, and of course this is a carbon neutral building. Is that one of the first carbon neutral buildings in Montreal, in the country?
I won't say it for the country. I'm sure there are more than one. But again, it's having worked with the client and the architects and the whole team, and to make sure that we meet those targets. It's not just to say that the building is carbon neutral, but you actually have to demonstrate it, and that takes a team. And so there's people in house with their lead designation, including myself, people at the from the consultant side and from the owner side, and we all have a part to play to make sure that it is a carbon neutral project.
Yeah, can you, and carbon neutral, and I know this might be off on a tangent, but it has to do with like the manufacturing process of the materials, the actual building process, and then actually how the building performs. So it's a whole.
Correct.
And
it's definitely the next evolution of LEED, we've JCB, we've done many LEED projects. I think today a lot of people know what that is, but yes, the carbon neutral is more than that.
Yeah, and it's it's net zero footprint over the full duration.
Correct.
Could you compare that to, like, is that for commercial? Is that like similar to a passive house designation in some ways, in a lot of ways, almost the same?
I believe so. I let the professionals kind of educate me on those topics for sure.
Yeah, me too. It's hard sometimes there's the terminology, if you're not a professional, it's hard to keep up with exactly what, that's the only reason I asked. It's
for sure.
Obviously something we're all front.
But the topic, it's just introducing this topic here today just proves a valid point. Is that this college being carbon neutral, are there more in Canada? Yes, I absolutely think that there are. The quantity, that I'm not sure of. However, as many countries, including Canada, move to carbon neutral world, and it is poised to I forget now by 2050 or something like that, is the mandate, right? This is JCB's comfort that we have built these, and when the next project owner, when the next building owner, I should say, is looking for that experience level and the knowledge and lessons learned, JCB has that in their repertoire.
Absolutely, that's a very valuable thing to have on the company CV and project history. I'll mention Pierre Thibault, I hope I said that right, and A49, who are the architects on that project, just since we're chatting about it. Am I right in saying that?
That I'm not sure.
I have my notes here, so I think I am. We'll leave this in. We won't edit it out.
Did a good job cueing you.
She definitely knows her stuff. What about, there's another thing, there's lots of interesting parts of this building, but there's one I wanted to ask you about, and I'm not sure if we can chat about it or not, but I just find it so cool, the mahogany and oak window frames, and these large came pre-glazed. about 7.5 meters long, 2.5 meters high. They weigh 3,000 pounds. Is it so? JCB had to actually invent a new forklift and scenario and some of the gear to actually install these, right? With 6 men to lift it, and then because it couldn't be done with the crane. Is that right?
So, this is a great example. So I said earlier, BIM and the ability to prefabricate, ductwork and sprinkler pipe, and it becomes a Lego puzzle. This is another element of pre-construction. These systems, these glazing systems, came to site, fully fabricated, fully sealed, as a modular unit. Absolutely. Was it challenging? When you look at it on paper, it's only this big.
Yeah.
On paper, it's only this big.
Depends what the scale is,
right? When it shows up on a truck and you go, oh.
Well, the first thing I thought when I seen that, I thought, okay, who was estimating this for the glazing contractors, and what were they thinking per square foot for the panels, for install, this kind of stuff.
But then you turn to rigging experts, right? People who do this for a living, they called riggers, and they take the problem, which is what this is before us, and project managers is what we all do. We look at a problem and we solve the problem. We can't say we can't do it. We find a solution to do it. And so, you must get your thinking cap on, or hard hat, of course. It's a construction site, and let's put several heads in a room and let's weigh out some options, evaluate those options with risk, with cost, and go for it.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. I just love those kind of stories. There's all kinds of stories you'll hear from different job sites and how people were able to solve problems, and I mean, that's a little above my thinking. I'm just lucky enough to be able to talk to people like yourself, but I love to hear how these people come together and solve these problems, and the fact that, being that innovative to create a new installation method with a new forklift and the gear to get it installed. It's pretty cool.
Well, the word can't, doesn't happen on a construction site. Don't tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do and accomplish that.
Absolutely. What about the floors? The floors in this building, radiant floors. Is that what they're called?
Yes. So what happens is you install some tubing before you pour the concrete, of your slab of what you stand on.
Yeah.
And that tubing is then filled with sometimes it's water, sometimes it's glycol. It depends on the system. Where it's indoors, water is okay. And it circulates through the floor.
Yeah.
And because what you're doing is heating mass, right? You're heating a mass element like the concrete. Then the feeling of the space, your natural, ambience becomes warmer.
The temperature,
and it's very, very energy efficient.
And more consistent, right? The heat, and less drafts and.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're used to seeing that sort of thing in residential, but for a large school, it's pretty unique, right?
It's pretty unique, and listen. I think we could probably do an entire other show on mechanical heating systems. There's pros and cons to system A versus system B. A building owner has to evaluate return on investment, has to evaluate building durability, maintenance costs, carbon neutral.
Absolutely. Just to get your thoughts on. Actually, first, I'd like to mention New Brunswick. Does JCB have some work happening in New Brunswick as well as Newfoundland and a couple of different provinces, or mostly in Newfoundland at this time?
So right now it's Newfoundland only. We are currently courting a few clients, private clients that are looking to build in the Atlantic provinces. and you'll definitely see me out your way very soon.
Okay, great. So yeah, we'll see you in Nova Scotia as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, that's great. What do you think about where things are headed? Uh, what excites you about the coming, we'll say, the next 2 or 3 years, and what's some of the challenges that will put you on the spot?
No. Well, listen. It's been 20 odd years in construction, and so it's definitely it's a very good industry to be in. As I mentioned earlier, I'm on several different boards, and I'm on the board of the Canadian Construction Association. It's a very exciting board, and there's a campaign called Talent Fits Here, and what I'm looking forward to about that campaign and the Talent Fits Here is the younger generation that want to get into the construction industry. What I mean by that is I've said very openly and publicly, you know, to parents, I said, if your children are expert PlayStation players or Xbox players, in other words, they are very used to having the earphones and virtually talking to someone. They have the controller in their hands. Well, they have a future in construction. They absolutely do. Where? Machinery, like excavation equipment, to even today, that gets operated from a remote location because mining can be very deep and very dangerous. And so it's manless equipment that goes down to the thing. But also like tower cranes. Tower cranes in the future will become manless, so that the person, the operator, doesn't have to climb the 300 feet to the top. Maybe 300 feet is an exaggeration, but you get the picture. And so that you're more so down on the ground, but operating the equipment, as well as there's advancements in a lot of technologies for things like bricklayers, for like exoskeletons. So if you're my generation, I grew up watching RoboCop. Well, guess what? That's going to be a real thing. An exoskeleton that in other words is the robotics behind the human, and it will help pick up larger items, heavier items, where the youth may not want to enter that industry, but they now can differently. And so things like that definitely excite me. Where the challenges occur, it's not a secret. It doesn't matter what industry you are. It does not matter. There's a shortage of people, workers. There's a shortage of workers at all levels, from director levels, PM levels, to superintendents, to tradespeople, to laborers. Not just in the construction industry, but I think everyone will agree today that at least as of this date, there's restaurants that are lacking people. There's delivery companies that are lacking people, and warehousing that's lacking people. So in the construction industry, I like to discuss with my clients, anyways, the ability to build into the design some modularity. Whether that's modular wall constructions or modular rooms or pods, or again with the use of BIM that helps, because it can be pre-built in a factory. And brought to site.
Offsite construction. It makes me think of Falk built or dirt environmental, those modular partitions, and a lot of that coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're also a member of, or is yourself or JCB as well, of the Newfoundland Labrador Construction Association. So you're part of that, part of the Canadian Construction Association.
Absolutely.
Maybe just talk just for a minute about
sure.
what it's like and how that benefits you as a contractor, and obviously what it's like to be part of those associations.
That's that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. So firstly, JCB is a proud member of the Newfoundland Labrador Construction Association, and we have been for the past 2 years. And I'm also on the board, and I'm currently the chair of the board of that association.
Wow.
And then because you join a local construction association, the local construction association provides that link and passageway that you become a member firm to the Canadian Construction Association. So yes, absolutely a proud a member of that too. So what I like about being part of this association, and I recommend it to everyone, to every construction company, to become a member, because it's with strength in numbers, and that sometimes people don't believe that really works, but it's strength in numbers that with the quantity you have the ability to advocate for what you want. Okay, so NLCA, Newfoundland Labrador Construction Association, approximately 650 member firms. We're very, very proud of that. There's lots of great members. I get a chance to chat with many. And then nationally, the Canadian Construction Association is, with all of the local construction associations, there's 20,000 member firms, right? So strength in numbers. And all of those firms employ people. So when you go to government, whether it's the provincial government, NLCA, advocacy, or the CCA to the federal governments, and you present documentation that talks about infrastructure, that talks about shovel-worthy projects, then that's a pretty powerful voice.
Yeah, I mean, you're able to ride the wave of an ever-changing industry by being connected. A lot of times associations provide so much in the way of networking. And then also, the day-to-day stuff that contractors need, like training, preparing for a healthcare job with infectious control courses, or printing blueprints and drawings, and all kinds of services and stuff. So I think you're right. I think I'll echo that and say that, especially I think maybe for the smaller contractors that are growing, can benefit maybe the most.
For sure, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned some great things there. So the NLCA delivers quality educational content regularly for people to upskill, to become more knowledgeable, to become more profitable. And when I say profitable, it means that if your workers learn something new, that's actually profit for the company, because they will do better. The NLCA has a great printing service. We offer that to all the member firms, at a great price. And so it's important to have. And yes, I encourage anyone involved in the construction industry, whether consultant, general contractor, subcontractor, owners, insurance companies, to become member firms. It's very, very important.
Absolutely. Well, Patrick, it's I wish we could talk for hours. It's been really, really interesting to hear about your reference to the equilateral triangle with time, scope, and money, and then to hear about your journey and your connections with as the chair of Newfoundland Labrador Construction Association and a member of the board with the Canadian Construction Association, all about JCB and their recent growth into Newfoundland, the office here, and obviously the such a neat project with St. Anne's College and the carbon neutral and all the neat things that happen there. Just for some context on some of the big stuff that JCB is doing nationally in central Canada. So and a treat for me to talk to you, and obviously you're with your experience, and not hard to tell that it's an industry you're extremely passionate about. So it's always great to be able to soak up some wisdom and knowledge from people like yourself, and have a meaningful conversation where people can tune in and hopefully continue snowballing into more talks, and hopefully it leads to just making a small progress year to year. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I really enjoyed being part of this. Thank you so much for inviting me and inviting JCB into your home, and letting the opportunity to share my story. It's been great.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Atlanta Construction Podcast. Be sure to follow us on any podcast platform you use. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Atlanta Construction Podcast. Be sure to send us a comment or a review. We'd love to engage with you.